All right, welcome back, Twitch chat. We are here once again with the fourth round, I believe, of legacy coverage. Is it fourth? Yeah, yeah, fourth round of legacy coverage here in Huntsville, Alabama. My name is Christopher Cusera. I will be your caster once again for this evening, afternoon, whatever. We have for this round Blue Red Delver played by Landon Tynes facing Josh Griffith on Infect. Josh Griffith will have the play. He will start with a turn one brainstorm. That's interesting. Usually that means that you have no lands in hand because you're not going to get a perfect brainstorm with a fetch land. Either that or maybe he just needs an infect guy and he's afraid of it getting countered by Landon. Yeah, Landon just drew an Izzet Charm. Dude, that's sweet. I thought I saw that. I was like, there's no way. Landon will go with a Delver. Delver will get dazed. Will Landon daze back? He will not. So we are back to turn one for Josh with a fetch land. So I think generally Infect is probably going to be favored in this matchup. Um, Landon is playing a Price of Progress version of the Blue Red Delver deck. So he has, let's see, 4 Lightning Bolts, an Izzet Charm, and 2 Fork Bolts as far as removal goes. A playset of Price of Progress isn't going to be very good here. I guess it could get a couple lands if he has like an Ingmoth and a Tropical Island and a Pendelhaven out. Josh will go with a Glistener Elf and a pass. Landon will draw a Snapcaster Mage. 3 of those in his main deck, as well as a Storm Chaser, as far as the mages go. I see a Brainstorm, the Snapcaster. I think that was a second Brainstorm in his hand, so Ponder Days and Delver Secrets. So he already has one Delver in hand, so the second is probably going back. Landon will have his perfect Brainstorm. A Brainstorm followed by a fetch. Don't think he has a removal spell for this Glistener Elf. Well, he has the Izzet Charm, of course, but he can't cast it this turn. I expect we'll probably see the Delver come out. Let's see if this one gets dazed as well. I kind of wanted to. I think it'd be kind of funny. Looks like Josh will just let it resolve and take his turn. Haven't gotten a chance to see any of Josh's hand yet. He swings his Glistener Elf. I would consider blocking here. I'm not a very good Magic player, though. Like Landon might still be thinking about it. So if he does end up blocking, then he either gets to kill the Glistener Elf or Josh has to spend a pump spell on it. Otherwise, it just gets through, and it did get through. We'll have a second main Sylvan Library. And will not flip his Delver of Secrets. You saw him hesitate there before he put the card in his hand. He cannot, it looks like, is it charm the Glistener Elf and be able to pay for days. Looks like instead he's just going to fire off a cantrip. We'll go for a Ponder. He finds Lightning Bolt, Fetch Land, and a Snapcaster Mage. I would be inclined to take the Lightning Bolt here. I'm not sure if you fire it off yet. Looks like he might be drawing that Snapcaster Mage, actually. He will. Well, I don't think he has a force or anything, and that's a second in hand. He deploys another Delver of Secrets. And swings for one with his lazy playable Fugitive Wizard. One drop for one. 1-1. The best tempo play in the game. Joshua Sylvan Library. I missed what he did because I had a phone message go off. I had to silence, but I don't expect to be paying a lot of life here. Comes in again with his Glistener Elf. I think Landon has a Daze in hand as his only protection if Josh has pump spells. And he will go for the block this time. Which will kill the Glistener Elf. Josh just have the Inkmoth Nexus as backup. So he's not without an Infect dude. Landon will flip the Delver with that Lightning Bolt. Oh yeah, that was why he took a Snapcaster Mage last turn. To flip his Delver. He will deploy a Monastery Swift Spear and get in for 4. Not sure about the life totals at the moment, unfortunately. Joshua will draw his 1 card. So a Noble Hierarch will come out. Has, I think, another Inkmoth in hand. I think I saw a Daze earlier as well. He will swing in. They pumped Inkmoth Nexus. I think this should be putting Landon up to 3 Infect after 1 hit from a Glistener Elf. And maybe briefly considering Lightning Bolting it during combat. Historically is not a great idea against an Infect deck. Here comes an Invigorate though. So with that 4 damage would put him from 3 to 7 instead. Looks like Landon might be going for the Lightning Bolt now. And if there's another Invigorate instead of Daze. And then the Daze is dazed. A lot of things happen quickly. There was an Invigorate followed by a Lightning Bolt. I think technically speaking the Invigorate is still in the stack, the first one, even though it's in the graveyard. And then in response to the Lightning Bolt, another Invigorate, and then that was dazed, and then the Daze was dazed. So I think Josh will just win, yeah. He will win the counter war and the pump war as it is. And take game 1. Seems like a bit of a slower draw from Landon. Let Josh just get in under the defenses. Landon at the end of that game had, I think, two Snapcasters and an Is It Charm in hand, as well as maybe some cantrips. So he had action going on, just wasn't able to cast much of it quickly enough. We will turn to the sideboard to see what our players might bring in. Landon Tynes, our blue-red Delver player, has one copy of Mindbreak Trap, one copy of Submerge, two copies of Back to Basics and Exquisite Craft, two copies of Smash to Smithereens, a Pyroblast, two Red Elemental Blasts, two Sulfuric Vortexes, an Is It Staticaster, and two Surgical Extractions. So of these, the Submerge is generally very good. It's a spell that can buy you a ton of time and blink both attack steps and pump spells that isn't stopped by other pump spells. So like that last turn he couldn't invigorate in response to say a submerge instead of a lightning bolt and win that, or he would need a violence or another counterspell or something. The Is It Staticaster are generally very good against Infect. All of their guys have one toughness until they're pumped, so that's a very powerful sideboard option. The Back to Basics might just come in. It's slower, but if Josh has things like Tropical Islands and Inkmon Nexus, that can be a powerful option. In fact, not a deck that plays a lot of basics, despite what I said about Price of Progress last game. It can be pretty decent. Smash to Smithereens, probably not super great. It kills Inkmon Nexus, but outside of that, it's not a very useful card. You may bring it in anyway. Pyroblast and Red Blast. I think I would consider bringing those in. It kills Blighted Agents. It stops cantrips. It can slow your opponent down if they're needing to find some action, or just counter spells and counter wars. Josh Griffith from his sideboard has one Wasteland, one Necropede, three Swords to Plowshares, two Rest in Peace, a Crop Rotation, a Crozin's Grip, a Seal of Primordium, a Hydroblast, a Flusterstorm, a Force of Will, a Dismember, and a Surgical Extraction. So out of these, I would expect the Hydroblast probably seems pretty good against all of the red burn spells in Landon's deck. The Flusterstorm can help win counter wars. The Force of Will may also come in for that same reason. Crop Rotation might just come in. That's a spell that you could use to blank a Wasteland and turn it into an Inkmoth Nexus instead, if Landon goes to Wasteland one of his non-basics. The white splash cards, the Swords and the Rest in Peace, I don't think are very good here. Swords is okay. You might bring that in to buy him some time if he can Swords the Delver. One Wasteland, probably not super great. I would be sort of surprised if that came in. I think that's more for like lands decks that have a Maze of Ith or something that you need to get through. Surgical for both players probably won't come in, I think. That's sort of a do-nothing card if you want to be interacting, which I think both of these players value highly. So those are our sideboard options. Our players will finish shuffling up at some point this year. We will get into game number 2. As our players draw their opening hands, Landon with his Flexi Standard State Champion mat on top of our Legacy Tour Huntsville provided gigantic mat thing. And our players getting up to do something. Looks like he's handing somebody a pack of sleeves. Alright, Landon's hand has some lands, some blasts, some counter spells. I think a lightning bolt was that last card. Seems decent. Oh, there's a Delver. That hand seems great. 2 lands, 2 blasts, a probe, a Delver, maybe a bolt too. Josh will be going back down to 6, unfortunately. Opener looks not super great, I guess. Delver can be a tough matchup for Infect. I guess if you have a more awkward draw, Delver can really punish that. If you have like 1 land in hand and it's a non-basic, you can just get wastelanded and the game's over. Especially with Landon on the draw. Landon can, say, play a Volcanic Island into a Delver Secrets, and then if Josh has a Tropical Island and a Ponder, you can daze the Ponder or wasteland the Tropical Island and the game can just be over. So if you don't have all of your pieces, the game can be very, very short. And we'll start off with his Gitaxian Probe. Not very relevant to go down to 18 life against Infect. Josh has a hand of 3 lands, a Blighted Agent, and 2 Noble Hierarchs. Generally a pretty serviceable hand, not super weak to Wasteland. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any way to protect that Blighted Agent. And being a blue card, it will die to every single one of the blasts that Landon has in his hand, as well as the burn spell that I may or may not have seen. He will begin deploying as a Noble Hierarch off of that tropical island. Landon might be looking to daze this. He will daze that Noble Hierarch, even though Josh has more copies of both the Hierarch and lands in hand. Maybe just looking to set Josh a little bit behind. Getting ahead on mana could be a really useful thing for the Infect deck to kind of steal the play back, as people describe it. Josh is going to crack his fetch land for a second land. Except maybe just seeing the Blighted Agent come down this turn. Fortunately, oh, shows us a Berserk accidentally. Unfortunately, as mentioned, this Blighted Agent I don't expect will be very long for this world. There are a lot of cards in Landon's hand that kill it. Another fetch land will allow him to cast both of them in one turn. Some kind of fancy dual land he has there. It's not black bordered, but it's a darker shade, so I guess that might be an unlimited or something. I'm not super familiar with different variations of dual lands. The Blighted Agent will get Pyroblasted. Swift Spear will trigger. And Landon will come in for beats. Another land out of Josh. We know he had other fetch lands in hand, so that was his draw step. Just less fortunate. You see Josh's second Noble Hierarch resolves without a problem. Now that Landon's gotten some lands online and already dealt with one infect creature, the game is no longer really about tempo as much. So that mana acceleration, not as important. And the 0/1 being a very, very unfortunate blocker. Certainly is not a Deathrite Shaman when it comes to blocking ground creatures such as the Fugitive Wizard out of Landon Tynes. However, attacking, it is as good at doing as a Deathrite Shaman, as he gets in for one whole damage. Let's see if the third tries the charm, and it is. A Force of Will turn our Delver of Secrets upside down. It will turn into that 3/2 guy from Shadows over Innistrad. Which card is that? Do you know what card that is? I don't either.
I don't play standard.
This is a legacy stream. Why are we talking about standard cards? Turn goes back to Josh. Not much happening on his side of the table. He'll need to find something very quickly. Plays his 5th land. Now, lands may be important, but only lands is important to not have when you are trying to race against a Delver of Secrets, rather an Insectile Aberration and a Swift Spear. Josh still no action, unfortunately, except for that very actiony Noble Hierarch. Passes the turn back. It's like a Snapcaster Mage was the draw for Mr. Landon Tynes. It means he currently has available a Pyroblast? No, a Red Blast. No, that was the Red Blast earlier. I misspoke, sorry. He has the Pyroblast and then Snap either one of those blasts, as well as a Force of Will, all in one turn available to him right now. So Josh will need something very good to get him out of this spot. Landon also with 0 Infect counters currently. The 1 power of Noble Hierarch not racing the 4 power on Landon's side. And an Inkmoth Nexus has joined the team for Josh Griffith. That does not die to a Red Blast. It also does not get countered by Force of Will. Landon may just be looking to leave Delver back to block if he can't find any kind of removal for the Inkmoth Nexus. He does still have a Force of Will and Red Blasts if Josh were to try to go for a kill the next turn with his Infect creature. And a Price of Progress. Oh my gosh. That's going to deal a lot of damage. Looks like at the moment the price itself will deal at least 6. It will also force Josh to either take 4 more or crack both of those fetch lands for not lands. So this game might just be ending this turn. Not 100% sure what Josh's life total what Josh's life total is. But after another hit from the Delver of Secrets into the Price of Progress for close to 10 damage, Josh's life total is about to be very, very low, if it's not already at or below 0. Looks like Josh will just Landon will pass the turn back. Price of Progress being an instant. He can cast it if Josh goes for any sort of cheeky plays. At the moment, just swinging one with his Inkmoth Nexus. And again, Landon at no Infect counters yet. And Invigorate comes out. Does he have the Berserk to make it a lethal attack? He does, as a matter of fact. He showed us earlier. Also a Spell Pierce. So Inkmoth Nexus currently swinging in for a lethal 10 Infect. Landon will Force of Will, exiling Snapcaster Mage. Still has a Red Blast back. A Spell Pierce into 5 lands. Not going to do it for Josh. And then a Price of Progress as well. Looks like it will finish this game up. So we are 1-1 as Landon Tynes playing Blue Red Delver gets game 2 off of Josh Infect. Sorry, Josh Griffith playing Infect. We will look back at their sideboards before game 3. Looks like the Price of Progress, no, sorry, not the Price of Progress, the Back to Basics and Surgicals still in Landon's sideboard as predicted. Um, well, as sort of predicted. I discussed that Back to Basics might come in, but it seems a little slow. I'm not surprised to see him keeping them out. So he might be bringing in an additional Price of Progress. May have sided one out after game 1. Looks like the Snapcaster that Landon had game 2 was possibly a one of after sideboarding. Definitely a powerful card, but definitely very slow against an Infect deck that can kill you on turn 2. As we saw game 1, 2 of them were waiting in his hand to be cast and never had the chance. Josh Griffith back on the play, game number 3, after dropping the second game of the match. Players will look at their opening hands. Looks like Landon has a bunch of blue cards and lands. Probably not a bad place to be in a Delver deck. I see a Daze, a Gadaxian Probe, a Flooded Strand, a Polluted Delta, and some other things. Price of Progress will be the draw. Josh will go Inkmoth Pass. Generally not really where you want to be out of Infect unless you have a turn 2 kill. A fetch land or a tropical island or something gives you a little more interaction. Although you may not need it on turn 1 against the Delver deck. Often just the safer play. Also doesn't expose the Inkmoth Nexus to a potential turn 1 wasteland. Landon does not currently have, but might have. Although we did see the Price of Progresses in game 2, so it would not be unreasonable for Josh to expect there to be fewer wastelands in Landon's deck. And in fact, let me go check. How many does he have? He has none. Okay, what am I talking about wasteland for? He doesn't have any wastelands. That makes a lot more sense. He has a lot of prices in Back to Basics that he wouldn't play any wastelands. Sorry. Josh will play a fetch land and pass the turn back. Looks like he has a Crop Rotation and Invigorate. A couple other cards I couldn't see in hand. So he's got some action going on. Definitely not the lands and hierarchs hand he had in the last game. And we'll play a Monastery Swiftspear and fire off a Gitaxian Probe. So we'll get to see just exactly what Josh has. Looks like Invigorate Berserk, land, a Daze, a Crop Rotation, and another land. A fetch land in a forest. So next turn, there's an Invigorate and a Berserk that could be coming Landon's way. If he doesn't have an answer to it through that Daze, he could just be dead. I see 2 Dazes, so he could be safe. He would be safe from that turn 2, or turn 3 rather, kill. Snapcaster Mage was his draw. He will fire off a Brainstorm, the second prowess trigger on Monastery Swiftspear this turn. Looks like Delver Stormchaser Mage. Whew. That is an aggressive 3 cards to draw. Don't know that Landon has another fetch land in hand, so this could be... No, he does. I see a Polluted Delta. Okay. That's pretty fortunate then. I expect probably at least one of these creatures will be going back on top, if not both of them. Still keeping the 3 cards he drew off of Brainstorm separate from the rest of his hand. I think he might be forgetting which spell he's resolving. He will put, I believe, at least one of the Delvers went back on top.
So you've just never played the Archetype before, have you?
Swiftspear gets in, and the turn will go back Josh's way. Interesting to see here whether or not he goes for that Invigorate Berserk. He won't have any mana up to pay for Daze. Landon does have 2 of them in his hand. So, barring I think a Force of Will draw. No, another Daze would do it as well for Josh. But barring another counterspell, Landon will be safe this turn because Josh still has 1 Daze in hand, and Landon being tapped out would not be able to pay for it on his Daze. Didn't get to see the draw. I would imagine Josh would just go for it here, seeing that Landon is tapped out. It would have to be counterspells that he has. But Landon did get to see Josh's entire hand last turn from the Gitaxian Probe. So Landon will know what's going on. Tropical Island joins the battlefield for Josh. We will see whether or not he wants to try to end the game this turn, or if he thinks that is premature. The unfortunate thing is that if he does not go for it here, the Daze in his hand gets significantly worse. And it will not be getting as bad for Landon as quickly. Ikamoth Nexus will come in for 1 Infect. Does Josh want to make it more, is the question. So it is not. Ikamoth will swing for 1. And the turn will go back Landon's way.
I don't think that scenario works, so the reverse shouldn't. I'm not sure about that, so I want to check.
Landon will draw a Delver of Secrets. Sacrifice a polluted Delta. Shuffle away the other card he put on top.
Actually, it's negative one. Let's see what it says. We're on Reddit here.
So that means Josh Griffith still has the Invigorate in hand to save his guy from a burn spell, or to just go for a lethal attack later on. If he finds another Invigorate, then because of the 1 damage he dealt last turn, that would also be lethal anyway, and it would play through dazes much easier than an Invigorate Berserk. Landon plays some guys. Stormchaser Mage, I believe, is a flyer, naturally. So that would be able to block the Inkmoth Nexus if Josh goes for that route next turn. Because now, Landon being tapped out again this turn, Josh could play another land, and then by paying 1 mana and using his days, he can force that Invigorate Berserk kill through Landon's 2 dazes. So we will see this turn if he wants to go for that, or if he thinks that is still too early and just wants to continue advancing his mana and chipping in for infect damage.
Yep, uses last known information, so we become a -1/-1. Yeah, apparently you could like get that trigger on the stack, growth it up, and then it would copy that.
Josh taking just a moment to think things through. I believe these players are both undefeated at the moment, so this is a relatively important match. Because this is round 4 now, so next round undefeated players can double draw in. I'm not sure. That stuff's hard. Tournament math is difficult. But I do believe both of these players are still undefeated. I could be wrong about that. Don't take my word for it. It's like a judge is talking to one of the players. I'm not 100% sure what the situation is. Let's see if we can either find out or at least just keep going with the match. And Josh will just pass the turn back. Brainstorm will flip Delver of Secrets into an Insectile Aberration. Landon will tap a land and play a Delver of Secrets. We'll get in with the Delver and the Swift Spear, leaving back the Stormchaser Mage as a blocker for Inkmoth Nexus. It seems like a pretty solid play to me. It's like Snapcaster, Daze, and one other are the cards in Landon's hand now. The Brainstorm that he drew would be the 4th card. So with another land or two, the Dazes in Landon's hand will be useless if Josh does go for the Invigorate Berserk kill. Aha! No. I thought I might be storaging the Stormchaser Mage. I got kind of excited. Instead, he will just crop rotation. Get a Pendlehaven. This will make Inkmoth Nexus be able to safely swing into Storm Chaser Mage without fear of just dying. That Savannah is main deck. Sometimes you see the Savannah in the sideboard with the white splash, so we still don't know if Josh brought in, say, any Swords of Plowshares. Seeing that Savannah doesn't tell us enough about that. We haven't seen any thus far, so I would expect he probably didn't, but you never know. Looks like a Dryad Arbor and another tropical island are still fetch targets for Josh's fetch lands.
I was thinking if you could cycle the things, can you just say let that out? Spike Peter, yeah. Can you just like let the trigger sit on the stack?
We'll find the third tropical island. A Price of Progress right now would deal 10 damage to Josh. Inkmoth Nexus will be animated. Expect the Pendelhaven to pump the Inkmoth Nexus as well. It will do so. Landon without a burned hand doesn't have anything useful to say about it. And he does know about the Invigorate Berserk, so if he doesn't block, he's going to need something to try to fight against this Inkmoth Nexus. Brainstorm will find I think that was a Monastery Swift Spear, a Polluted Delta, and a Price of Progress. Now, Price of Progress might just end this game on the spot. I'm not sure what Josh's life total is. Unfortunately, Landon cannot cast it until his next turn. So that doesn't help with the situation of the Inkmoth swinging in. Inkmoth currently a 2/3. So Invigorate will turn Inkmoth Nexus into a 6/7. And if he does go for the Berserk, I see another Invigorate as well. Oh my goodness. Inkmoth is gigantic. If this Berserk resolves, Landon is extremely dead. I think he still has 2 dazes in hand. So having his one land up will mean that Josh's daze will not get him there. So here comes the Berserk. Expect the double daze, and then I don't think Josh has a response afterwards. I don't know what the last card in Josh's hand is. Relevantly, Prowess triggers from Storm Chaser Mage, absorbing more trample infect damage from the Inkmoth Nexus. Josh will throw out his last daze and concede the game. Landon Tynes will be our winner of this match. Blue-Red Delver triumphing over Blue-Green Infect. Well played by both players.